Welcome to Media in the Mix, the only podcast produced and hosted by the School of Communication at American University. Join us as we create a safe space to explore topics and communication at the intersection of social justice, tech, innovation, and pop culture. Welcome back to Media in the Mix. Today we have Maggie Burnette Stogner, who was my documentary filmmaking professor when I was a grad student here at AU. She's also the executive director for the Center for Environmental Filmmaking, as well as a bunch of other things, which we will get into today, involved with AUSOC. So, Maggie, thank you so much for being here. I feel like this is very full circle. I always say when I have my old professors on, it's just really nice to be able to sit down and talk to you about the things that you're up to. So, for anybody that may not know, do you mind just giving us a little background about yourself, how you kind of got to AU, and where you're at now?
So how much time do we have?
We have to, yeah. Take your time.
No, thank you. I'm actually just delighted and honored to be with you and to just see, you were my student and look where you are now and you're doing all these great things and it's just really exciting. And it brings me back to days when I got out of film school and, was a little lost, like, what am I going to do? And there were so many mentors that helped me navigate how to make films, how to navigate the business, how to network. I was super shy. And you wouldn't know that so much now, but I was super shy.
Pretty interesting back to learn. Yeah.
And, I was fortunate enough to be able to really have that kind of mentorship. And I started doing independent films and working on as many different films as I could to get experience on different capacities. I love doing camera work, always have. I love writing. But where I ended up initially was as an editor because I liked having that kind of longer contract of film to film over several months instead of day to day on a whole bunch of films. But, eventually you kind of find what your strengths are and what works for a certain lifestyle. When I had kids, that really made editing a very good choice. But eventually I got back to doing more camera work and being in the field more. And I ended up working at National Geographic. I thought it was just going to be a 2-month contract, but they invited me to stay on and come on their staff. And so I was there for almost 10 years, working mainly with the expedition and research and exploration films, which was just amazing. I mean, just met so many amazing people doing really interesting science and exploration in the field. That comes full circle because Sam Shaleen, who graduated from our program, is now at the National Geographic Society Story Lab.
Okay.
And he ended up being the videographer on their Everest expedition where they were able to get ice cores at the highest elevation ever. So I was, wow. So, it really does come full circle. When I left Geographic, the next thing I did was start Blue Bear Films, a production company. I really wanted to continue to work in filmmaking that for me made a difference in not so much the reality TV, which was the trend. So I was very fortunate and ended up working on a lot of world touring museum exhibitions and the King Tut exhibits and the ancient Greece, ancient Arabia. I did work with the Smithsonian. We did one with Lucasfilm called Indiana Jones and the Adventure of Archaeology about the film clips and how archaeology is represented in those films, and had all these props from the films. It was so cool. But then also real archaeology and what's really being done, and to inspire young people to become archaeologists. So that just gave me an opportunity to work a lot in the ancient civilization realm and to work with a lot of different kinds of filmmaking. I mean, there were big screen films and small and animations and interactives, and it just was a very different sandbox to play in. How do you work alongside these amazing artifacts, and how do you draw people back into a different time and place 3,000 years ago using film? And you can do it really effectively. It's just a different style.
Yeah, that's great. That actually kind of leads me into my next question, which can you tell us a little bit about the Center for Environmental Filmmaking, kind of the projects you work on, and then that'll kind of lead us into your most recent project, which we'll talk about. But can you just dive in a little bit more into kind of how we can use documentary as a catalyst for social change and to just kind of make people listen?
Absolutely. I mean, I think documentary media generally is a very effective way to engage people, inspire them, empower them, and really activate them. So that is a catalyst for change.
Right.
And whether you're doing it subtly, I think about the ancient Afghanistan Silk Road project I worked on at a time when Afghanistan was just being really pilloried in the media. And, it just gave people a different sense of, the history there and what it was in ancient times and how important it is to remember history. So even through an educational, essentially art and archaeology museum exhibition, you can affect change. You broaden people's horizons. You can do things which I've been doing much more kind of on the nose, which is to draw people right into issues, really critical issues, climate crisis issues, environmental justice issues. And my current film, Upstream Downriver, which just launched and is having its world premiere with the DC Environmental Film Festival on March 21st. That is really taking people into the world of communities across the United States that are fighting for clean water for everyone, for clean water justice, for clean water equity. And we know that the neighborhoods, the communities that are most impacted by climate change are going to have the worst water issues. And, there has not been equity. There have been tremendous strides made through the Clean Water Act regulations, but it hasn't been applied and enforced equitably. So this was the idea of not only bringing people into the worlds where people and communities are facing issues, it's also about helping people understand that through community leadership, through community activism, we can make our voices heard. I mean, it really comes down to a very strong theme of democracy. We, the people, or the government. And if we can all come together and work around shared values of equitable, clean, healthy air, clean, healthy water, clean environments, community ways to address our climate crisis, we can make change.
Yes. Yeah. We actually talked about that a little bit on our last episode, this idea of if we all come together and are innovative and work together and collaborate, then a lot can be done versus just one person being like, I don't know if I can do this.
Absolutely.
It's just that force of people coming together is super, super powerful.
And we feel disempowered. But then you see a film and you see these models that are working.
Yes.
Are people coming together and really fighting and really, really showing strength. And it's inspiring. It's like, wow, I can go do that in my neighborhood.
Yeah.
Or I can go be part of a group that's doing that in my neighborhood. I mean, with Upstream Down Water, we have a number of different partners. American Rivers, the Clean Water for All Coalition, which has 80-some organizations, and the Waterkeepers Alliance. And the Waterkeepers Alliance has 300 organizations across the United States. So there's one probably near to where almost anybody lives that they can get involved with to make sure that those watersheds, those waterways are being kept safe, being kept clean. They're witnessing illegal toxic dumping and reporting it back to the waterkeeper, and that person can go forward with lawsuits. I mean, it's really an effective organization.
It's amazing.
River Rally is another one. So there are many organizations out there. So when people see that in a film, the film's only a half an hour long, but it has these models of stories that really show different ways of getting involved and different ways of achieving success through community involvement.
I remember in your class, you taught us a lot about you can put together a documentary, but what's your call to action? And what is the mission behind it? What's the purpose behind it? So I've definitely taken that with me just in terms of any project I've done in terms of storytelling, because it's true. I mean, what is the change that can come out of this project? And I think that's always a good one to remember.
Yeah, absolutely. And we don't have to tell people, we just show it.
Yeah.
We just show examples of it that are really meaningful examples.
Yeah.
With the Center for Environmental Filmmaking, I took it on, I think, about 4 years ago. And, it's one of the few, I should point out, it's one of the few centers that has a program where students can focus on a graduate level in concentrations specifically on environmental and wildlife, climate justice.
Beautiful, yeah.
And so we get students that are already naturally kind of activist minded.
Yeah.
I love that. But then it's how do you tell the stories and what kinds of stories engage different kinds of audiences. So we have a lot of programs where people come in and talk about their films and what they've done with their films. And that kind of led me to the idea of, well, how can we really strategically understand impact
Yeah.
and how to create intentional impact through our films. So we started a project funded by HHMI Tanglebank Studios, and it's been in the works for about 3 years now, and we have a number of case studies. We did a deep dive into research with students as researchers. It's a great kind of research fellowship opportunity, and we really looked at things like emotional tone. What's your visionary goal? What do you really, I love dreaming, so we got to have a vision there, not just theory of change, but really, what's your visionary goal? What do you want your film to do?
Yeah.
And who can help you do that in terms of partners and audiences? And then how do you reach those audiences? And we have such I call it a messy media landscape, but really there's a lot of opportunity, a lot of new opportunities in this media landscape. So how can we go to where the viewers are?
Right.
We can't expect viewers anymore just to come to us. There's too much content out there. It's too hard to find.
Right.
So how can we go to the viewers? How can we engage those viewers that are going to get on board and really help make intentional impact? And so this is a research project. Our website is www.cefimpactmedia.org.
And we'll include that in the description as well.
Thank you. Yeah, because it's got a great blog. We try to give people different entry points. So there's the website, a lot of case studies, so you can actually read through how different films have done different things. We've partnered with Jackson Wild.
Okay.
I'm a reviewer for the Impact Campaign finalists, and then I do interviews with the filmmakers. So we have the filmmaker conversations, and then we have our new blog, Storytelling for Impact, on Medium.
Wow.
And so there are different ways that people can access information and just different methods. It's growing, it's evolving as a field of understanding. How do we do this? And there's no one right way. In fact, there are many, many, many right ways. And so it's just then informing ourselves about, this technique might work, or that approach might work, or how can we be creative about the impact that we create from the very beginning of our filmmaking process.
And just out of curiosity, because I know we have a lot of advancing technology at AU, so can you give us an insight into how we can be a little bit more immersive nowadays, just in terms of advancing technology?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, it's different ways of reaching people, and we really are on just the very beginning stages of some very interesting new technologies. So there's augmented reality, and there's virtual reality, and there's interactivity. So it's really about getting people to be more engaged. Curiosity is a great emotion to play with. So hooking viewers or hooking users on curiosity. What is that question? Where is that question going to lead to the next question? Right. So we have a game center here that we work with. It's part of Film and Media Arts. We have the structure of a volumetric studio, which is a way to create immersive media that has well, let me put it in layman's term, because it can get very techie, but on the other hand, it's not. You walk into a room with goggles, you actually see other people in the room, and you can move around and have an experience because you see this scene all around you, but it's a shared social experience. Right. So you're not just sitting in a chair all by yourself having this solo experience in your Barco lounger. Right. You're actually in a room and you're having a shared experience. And there's one beautiful one called A Drop in the Ocean that was done by Conservation International and the Jacques Cousteau Society. Oh, wow. And it held 6 people in a room. And so you could see each other. You were in diving suits. You go down into the water, and there's sea creatures all around you. And as you reach out to them, they move around you. So there's motion sensor.
That's very cool.
And it sticks with you. Yeah. I mean, you feel like you're part of this. And it had a story and a narrative, and all of a sudden things get dark, and you realize there's all this plastic. Wow. And you see all these poor animals tangled up in the plastic, the sea turtles. And there's some narration, but the music and the power and the visceral just emotional connection in that immersive experience was, I still feel it. And that I had that experience in 2019 at Jackson Wild. Wow. I still feel it. Yeah. So we have a lot of opportunity going forward with new technologies.
And that's so powerful, because it's sometimes the things you don't even think about that you then put yourself in the situation, and it kind of just changes your mind.
It does.
It's that really simple but not idea that sometimes you just don't know unless you can see it or unless you can experience it.
That's exactly right.
It's a good way to do that.
And it's another way really looking at media as catalyst, because you come out of an experience like that, just as you come out of a film, just hungry to do something.
Yeah.
And, that's really critical. And again, that something might be as simple as talking to your neighbor who thinks very differently than you do.
True.
But maybe then you saw a model about shared values.
Yeah.
And, it's not political. It's nonpartisan.
Yeah.
When we look at our climate crisis, maybe it's about shared values. And we want a good world, a healthy world for our children.
Right.
So, there's different ways to think about what that catalyst is.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that leads us into the experiential learning programs that our students get. So can you talk us through a little bit of, and I'll name a few, the National Park Service Fellowships. We've got archival storytelling with Nat Geo, which is very cool. I know we were diving deep into that the other day. Classroom in the Wilds. And then we have internships with NASA and NOAA, which is the National Oceanic Atmospheric Administration, which is so cool.
Yeah.
So can you just walk us through a few of those for any of our students listening?
Yes. Oh my gosh. I'm so excited about this because we just keep growing it and growing it. And, the center's been around since 2005, and we've had great partnerships with NASA and NOAA from the very beginning. And I think there's such a strong opportunity to look at science communication and how can we do short form and long form media that really engages people in science. And so with NOAA, we have several alum. Nick Zacher is still out there doing underwater 3D cinematography with NOAA. I don't know how he does that, but it's amazing.
Kudos.
And Shannon Schickles was out there for a while, and now she's over at Curiosity Stream.
She was in my cohort.
Yeah.
Shout out. Yeah.
And then NASA has a really great summer internship and fellowships, and it's been interesting to see grad student after grad student start with that internship, and then they go on to a fellowship, and now they're staff at NASA.
That's so
cool. There's one student that was working, she got hired on as staff. She's working in this immersive studio with like 10K sun flare, solar flare experiences where you walk in and it's like you're on the sun experiencing solar flares without the heat.
Yeah, without the heat. Won't last too long.
But right now we have Emmy Watkins who's working with NASA on her thesis film project.
Wow.
This is so cool. They're about to launch a new satellite that will help track alga blooms, toxic alga blooms around the globe. And this is increasing because of rising water temperatures. And things like fertilizer and pesticide runoff into the water. And so she's making a film.
That's so neat.
We meet with her advisors, which are like 5 to 6 people from NASA.
I was going to say, that must be an interesting meeting.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Which is like, it doesn't happen every day.
How do you translate that kind of science into something that audiences will care about and have some kind of understanding of why it's important? Why is this relevant?
Yeah.
So these are tremendous experiences. So, and then we have Classroom in the Wild with Larry Engel, who leads that. And then archival storytelling with National Geographic Society is something that was in the works. I've been trying to launch that course for a number of years, but that group is now in the education division.
Okay.
And that really opened up the path forward to do some great work with them. So we have a 3-credit course that students can do, and they are working with archive that's recently digitized of older expeditions and exploration that has rarely been seen outside of that building.
I was going to say, so this is actual Nat Geo archival footage that has been digitized. And that is digitized.
It's in their cold vault.
And
it's
that is what the students get
old
to work
film
with.
footage of expeditions
so cool.
from around the world.
Yeah.
So that is really exciting.
Yeah.
And then they get to work with some of those scientists. They work with the archivists. They learn how to do storytelling through archive, which is a growing field because many, many, many libraries are now being, or just footage generally is being digitized.
Yeah.
And so we have lots of storytelling opportunities with that. And then we have, things like just being able to work on the research opportunities with the impact research. And then the films, Unbreathable, which came out in 2020, and now Upstream, Downriver. I reach out to as many students as possible to work with me on those films,
That's great.
as well as alum across the country.
Yeah.
So when we talk about green filmmaking and having a low carbon footprint,
Yeah.
I know who to call.
Right.
I know that Stephen Tringali is a great cinematographer in Los Angeles.
Right.
And an alum from our program. And I know that I can reach out to him. And
Yeah.
there are people now, we have students really all over the place. So it's been really fun to reconnect. And something I noticed is that when I bring students on shoots and I hire alum as a professional cinematographer or sound person, they end up mentoring the students that I'm bringing on the shoots.
Yeah.
So it really is full circle.
It's full circle.
Yeah.
Everyone's giving back. It's like it starts with Maggie and then it's everyone else giving back.
Well, it starts with
Which is
community.
great. Yeah.
And that's something I talk a lot about in my classes is if you're interested in going into documentary, it's super important to have not just a network, but a community. We have to do this together to support each other because it's not necessarily the easiest field in the world.
No, it's not.
And so but that community is wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great. I love that. And if the students want to learn about these experiential programs, can they go on the Center for Environmental Filmmaking website and find out? Okay, so everyone knows.
They can find out about everything on there. You'll see different opportunities in the left-hand menu. But yeah, just go to CEF's website. Shorthand is environmentalfilm.org. And we also have we have Instagram. So please follow us on Instagram, follow us on Facebook.
Yeah.
And you'll see different things that are going on constantly. We have a lot of programs and we encourage students and alum to come to all of them. I mean, some are virtual, but now we're back in person.
Yeah, I was going to say, now we're slowly getting
about.
back. Yeah, it's good to be back, especially in the filmmaking world.
Really great.
So I wanted to ask you one just quick follow-up that I thought back to after your first answer. Is there anything in this industry that you've tried that you were like, never again? I absolutely don't think I'm going to go down that path. Because I know we talk a lot about like, I did this and it stuck with me. But is there anything that you were like, oh, I tried this and no, I'm good?
Yeah, and without sounding too negative, because you know me, I'm a pretty positive person. But one of the reasons I left Nat Geo, and it wasn't just Nat Geo doing this, but things shifted to reality TV. And I'm not a reality TV fan.
Gotcha.
And there's certain kinds that are more educational that are fine. But the type of reality TV that is really based on dissing people, on making people look bad, on putting people down, that are just largely negative, you will not find me in that space. Not doing it.
Yep.
Life is too short.
Yeah. There's a lot of issues, I think, now with reality TV. Actually, that might need a whole nother podcast episode to dive into.
Really, because, it's doing character-driven films is about letting really providing a platform and letting that character, we call, we might say participant now, tell their story.
Tell their story, right.
Instead of the host telling generally a negative story about that person.
Well, that's the problem. The narrative always shifts there. When you kind of give that participant the opportunity to tell their own story, you feel that genuine side as well.
It's authentic. It's genuine. You get to know them as a person. They get to know you. You build that trust, and then they share their story with you, and then you share the story with whatever audiences might be interested and might really be inspired by it.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for answering that question. I appreciate it. So that brings us to our last question. Speaking of alumni and community and engagement, how can our alumni, if they've graduated from cohorts, how can they stay connected to not just, their classmates, but staff, faculty, whoever they may have worked with? Is there a way to keep kind of everyone engaged, do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. Several ways. So one is sign up for our newsletter. You can go on the Environmental Film, the CEF website, and sign up for our newsletter.
Okay.
And we love to put alumni news and successes in the newsletter, but also it's all sorts of upcoming events, as well as resources and jobs and opportunities. So, Katie Grossman, who's a third-year MFA student, just does a wonderful job putting it together. So that's one way, because that way you'll just stay in touch with the different things that are going on with the center. But you can always reach out to us if you want to do a program, if you'd like to share, even in a classroom, or be part of an event, or you have a film you'd like to screen. Reach out. I'm Stogner at American.edu. Happy to hear from alum anytime.
Awesome.
And then we do have social media. We have a Facebook site. We have an Instagram site. So Facebook, Instagram, I think we're not doing anything on Twitter right now.
Okay.
But those two are the main ones. And then there's some Facebook groups. There's a Facebook Film and Media Arts alum
amazing.
group.
Okay.
So,
Perfect.
yeah, so look for those opportunities as
Great.
well.
Thank you so much. That's very helpful. Beautiful. All right. I think that concludes Media in the Mix. Thank you so much, Maggie, for coming on.
This was such a pleasure. Oh, such a pleasure and a delight.
I appreciate it.
Really.
Thank you. And if you want to listen to this podcast, go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify. We are a video podcast now on Spotify, which is exciting, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to donate to AUSOC, go to giving.american.edu to donate now. And that's a wrap.